I remember the day they poured ashes on Adanne's head. It was at a wedding in our village. The bride and groom had just started dancing when some boys decided to play a cruel game. They called Adanne to join the dance, laughing as they did. She hesitated, but when she finally stood up, her massive body seemed to make the ground shake with every step. The boys whispered to each other, then ran to the fire where women were cooking and grabbed cold ashes from the pot. Before Adanne could even start dancing, they threw the ashes at her, laughing and shouting,
"Dance, fat elephant! Shake the ground!"
The crowd roared with laughter. Even the elders didn't stop it. Adanne stood there, frozen, her face wet with tears, the ashes clinging to her skin and clothes. She turned and ran out of the compound, but the laughter followed her, ringing in the air like a curse. Before we continue with the story, please take a moment to follow my page, like this video, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments section. Your support keeps us going.
Story continues.
Adanne was the fattest woman I had ever seen. She wasn't just big, she was enormous, the kind of big that made people stare and whisper. No man in our village would even think about marrying her. They said she was too heavy to carry children, too clumsy to work on the farm, and too shameful to bring into a family. Her friends weren't any better. They pretended to like her but always made fun of her behind her back. I was one of those people who watched and stayed quiet. I wasn't brave enough to defend her, but I also felt bad for her. One day, something happened that changed everything. A prince came to our village. His name was Prince Emeka, and he was traveling through the land looking for a wife. He was tall, handsome, and dressed in the finest clothes. Everyone wanted to impress him. The women of our village lined up to meet him. They wore their best dresses, braided their hair, and painted their lips. They giggled and bowed, hoping to catch his eye. The men boasted about their farms and wealth, trying to earn his respect. But Prince Emeka didn't seem interested in any of them. He looked bored, even annoyed. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Is there a woman named Adanne in this village?" The crowd went silent. People looked at each other, confused. Why would the prince want to see Adanne? Some even laughed, thinking it was a joke. Adanne was hiding in her house when the elders came to fetch her. They knocked on her door and told her the prince wanted to see her. She refused at first, saying she didn't want to be laughed at again. But the elders insisted, and finally, she stepped out. When she walked into the square, people gasped. Adanne looked nervous, clutching her shawl tightly around her big body. The crowd began to murmur, some laughing, others shaking their heads. But Prince Emeka smiled. He walked up to her and said, "You are the woman I've been looking for." The crowd exploded. People shouted, "Why her? Is this a joke? She's too fat to be a queen." The prince raised his hand to silence them. "I've traveled far and wide," he said. "I've seen many women, but none of them have the strength I see in Adanne. She has endured mockery and cruelty, yet she stands here today with courage. That is the kind of queen I want." Adanne couldn't believe it. Tears streamed down her face, but this time, they weren't tears of sadness. For the first time, someone saw her for who she was, not what she looked like. The prince married her a week later. When they left the village, Adanne sat proudly in the royal carriage, waving at the people who once mocked her. Some of them cried, others clapped, and many just stared in shock. Years later, I heard that Adanne became a great queen. She was kind, wise, and loved by her people. Her story taught me something important. It doesn't matter what people think of you. What matters is what you think of yourself and how you carry your heart. I'll never forget the day Adanne left our village, proving to everyone that even the most unlikely person can be chosen for greatness. Thank you so much for listening and watching the video all the way to the end. I truly appreciate your support. Please don't forget to follow us and click the link in my bio to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support means the world to us.